how do you introduce a product like CBD, which is a constituent of cannabis, to those who have an addiction, those who may be fearful that it may cause a relapse, it may cause again that cycle to begin?
Well, okay. So, and Dr. Rita, I think that's an excellent question because we hear that a lot. Now, one of the things that we have to talk about when we're looking at persons who are in recovery from any illicit substance, there are always going to be triggers that exist. And that means, it could be anything from a particular area that one has been used to going to a family member's home, or, when we look, you talked about addiction around eating, or, we may have a mall that we go to, then every time we go to the mall, we get that particular Cinnabon, or there's a particular food that we love. We know that we go to this particular place, we want to get this. Persons may look at, say, for instance, a smokable CBD product and say, well, you know what, if I smoke a pre-roll, it's going to trigger that craving for me to want to use something else. And we can't deny that that exists, but it doesn't exist any more than any other trigger. What happens is, in treatment, we teach individuals how to cope with that. There are going to be some triggers that are avoidable, and then there are some triggers that are unavoidable. So let's give an example. An avoidable trigger may be Elm Street. You used to frequent Elm Street. Elm Street is where you purchased the substance. Elm Street may be where you sold an illicit substance. And when you go to Elm Street, you get this feeling that you now want to return to whatever your drug of choice was. Well, in therapy, we teach you how to cope with that, because on Elm Street may be your children. That may be where your children live. It could be where your parents live. And so you can no longer avoid going to Elm Street. But we teach you ways in which you can now cope, because you're in recovery doesn't mean these triggers are no longer going to exist, but you find other ways around it. So the blessing with Wakana products is that if indeed you find that a smokable product triggers a response that may manifest itself in a craving, then you can now go to another form of CBD consumption, like the seasonings or a water soluble, and that you don't have to actually use the smokable product. Just like I may say, okay, instead of going directly to Elm Street, you may need to go another way. You might need to park in the back of the home versus going to the front of the home. So there's always going to be a strategy that one can learn in treatment how to manage, because again, the world is still going to continue to exist. It doesn't disappear. Family members that you used to use with, they don't just die off because you're now in treatment. That particular family member that triggers that response, when you see them at a family dinner, or you talk to them on the phone, it could still trigger that craving, but they don't just die off because you're in recovery. So we teach you and you learn how to cope and manage through that. So again, with the different products that Wakana offers, if indeed one creates a challenge for you, then a person can now go another route and use another product that doesn't, and all while still gaining the benefit of using the CBD. And I hope
And
that answers that.
yes, it does. It does.